Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Jamie and Scott from Prophix with us. And Jamie and Scott will be presenting on Microsoft Dynamics plus Prophix equals FP&A, automation fueling business growth. And before I pass it over to Jamie and Scott to cover on this topic, I'd like to let you know that we are recording this and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those in the questions box. We will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'll pass it on to Scott and Jamie and they'll kick off our presentation.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks especially for helping us to put this on. My name's Scott Collada, and we've got Jamie Leverage here from Prophix on the line as well. We're going to talk today about Prophix for Dynamics users, and specifically some of the ways a CPM or corporate performance management solution like Prophix can help to automate some of your manual processes while driving real results to your bottom line. I want to start off by setting the stage a little bit for the most common problem that we solve initially for most of the clients that we're working with. And that's really that a typical organization is conducting their budgeting and forecasting and reporting and analytics in spreadsheets. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. It can be more than adequate when an organization consists of maybe a small number of people or one entity or just a few data sources. But over time, things are going to become more and more complex. You're going to add in multiple systems, multiple entities. You're going to be growing through acquisition. And as you add more data sources, be it maybe payroll systems, ERPs, CRMs, HRIS, and the like, and more people across the organization who are going to need to be viewing and receiving these spreadsheets at different functional levels. When you're using a static system, you're going to come to a point where things are going to start breaking. The accuracy of your data and insights will be diminished, and then version control and security issues are going to start to crop up more and more frequently. But of course, it doesn't have to be this way. And really what we're able to do here at Prophix is sit on top of your existing ERP system. So be that Dynamics Nav or Business Central, connecting into your GL tables, consuming that data, and providing really integrated financial planning, connecting all of those disparate data sources that your organization might have, and truly allowing you the ability to do things like what-if analysis, scenario planning, build forecast models, doing driver-based budgets, just bringing forward all that data from multiple sources and really comparing apples to apples instead of having all of that information siloed off. And then with all your models built, we can then output to your standard Microsoft Office tools. Our platform is built on Microsoft, so you can access as well Prophix through any modern web browser, Chrome, Firefox, or even mobile or tablet device. And then of course, users have the ability to drill back to the transactional level of detail in Prophix. So you're not jumping out of Prophix and going into another system if you want to get a look at kind of the underlying data there. It's all one system and one simple click. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the webinar today. And we're going to talk about some scenarios that organizations find themselves in before considering a CPM solution. Improving budget accuracy, it was the first thing that we thought of. It's a through line for many organizations that we speak with. Budget managers spend a lot of time designing, preparing spreadsheets. They're sending them to their departmental managers. They're reminding them when the budget figures are due. They're collecting and receiving these spreadsheets. They're copying data between them. They're validating the data. They're formatting them for submission to senior management. And then they're repeating a subset of these tasks for different business scenarios as well. Usually by the end of this pretty daunting multi-month process, the budget's validity and sometimes relevance can be a little bit questionable. But the annual and reforecasted budgets are a really, really powerful and pivotal tool for a company's success. So as a result, a solution like ours that can ensure reliability and timeliness is often critical. And a great example that we thought of to show here today is planning for employee payroll costs. It can be very challenging when spreadsheets are the only means of doing so. Data is often dumped out of the payroll system into spreadsheets. Then these spreadsheets are consolidated with things like new salaries, benefits, commission payouts into an OPEX report. And new headcount requests are coming in that need to be cascaded through. And we often find that some of our clients' current process before a system like Prophix is more of an eyeballing than anything else. So I thought maybe here we pivot and I'd let Jamie take over and we'd show you how we tackle this in Prophix.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. So hopefully everyone's able to see now that I've pulled up Prophix, got the interface up here in Google Chrome. And yeah, just to really quickly kind of summarize what Scott was saying there, a lot of this kind of data passing, whether it's being dumped out of a system, passed between different users, and then obviously being aggregated up into consolidated numbers before being put back into a reporting engine or into the ERP. That's where a lot of things go missing. The logic breaks down. How did we get here becomes a very tough question to answer. So on top of the automation of a lot of those things, really the accuracy and kind of the proof in the pudding is a big thing that Prophix really supplies. So what we're actually going to do to kind of articulate this is show two things really quickly. The first is a consolidated OPEX planning template, where you'll see once we get into there that we actually have our general ledger accounts going into account groupings here along the left. I have my plan version going over time, and I have it totaled up here in my final column. Like Scott was saying, certain things in our general ledger might just be at a surface level, like we'd be punching in numbers here, but others where we want to go into a greater level of detail to ensure the accuracy and really ensure that there's logic behind how we got here instead of just eyeballing these numbers, is why in Prophix we actually have a separate interface to go in and do more detailed levels of planning. So for example, while I can see all of my consolidated numbers here, I can't actually write anything in because this data is being populated from a completely different template. To dive into that template, essentially what end users are going to get is actually a really friendly, easy to use set of attributes that are going to automatically punch out all of these calculations that are written back into the central model. The value here is that when it comes to adding new hires, I have to automatically, I'm prompted to get all of this required information in about any employees that I'm making requests to now hire in. On top of that, once I've entered in all of this information, like I said, my calculations over here that are tied directly back to my different general ledger accounts are automatically being calculated out based on a set of parameters that we would be putting in. For example, here I might have different benefits packages that will follow different calculation logic. Taxes based on different states or countries are going to be calculated in completely different ways. It really gives us the peace of mind that as we have our departmental managers going through here and making adjustments and adding people and changing salaries, that the projected plan that we're then putting out for our payroll costs associated is 100% accurate. To show you kind of just how easy it is, what I'll do here is actually make a quick change. As an end user, again, I just need to know to punch in here into my base salary, pretty self-explanatory. Hit calculate. You can see now here, these four fields all got updated with the new base salary. And now once I hit update, what's actually going to happen is all the data in this sheet is going to get consolidated up, aggregated, and moved over to my core financial model where I'm doing my reporting. I'll see the impact of this as soon as I hit refresh in all my payroll columns here going across. So to rewind, coming from the current state of passing spreadsheets around, trying to get probably last year's actuals in terms of payroll costs out so that people can make adjustments, if people move, if they're having new hires, try to then take all of that data once it's finalized out, hopefully no calculations have been overwritten, consolidate it up, and get a full idea of our payroll costs for an organization. Translating that into this, where it's simply having our 10, 20, or 50 departmental managers, however many there are, entering in their various employees, hitting calculate and update, and finance now gets a completed payroll budget. I'm hoping that showing that already shows the advantage and the improvement in accuracy and logic behind all these numbers. With that, I'll maybe take 60 seconds here, see if anybody has any questions about what we just showed. But otherwise, yeah, just feel free to type them in through, and Angie, if any of them do come through, definitely feel free to read them out to us.
Great. I guess in the meantime, just to add here, I think this is important to start kind of thinking internally. How are you planning? How do you account for those variables like Jamie was going over, like taxes or benefits or employees transferring or position changes and tracking commissions and bonuses? If you don't have a tight process for that right now, maybe that's something that you reach out to your Novia account manager, and we schedule some time to speak in a little bit more detail. But if we don't have any questions, switching gears here a little bit into our next point, we want to go over kind of automating financial processes through our workflow and collaboration. A lot of organizations, when they first come to us, have this as one of their biggest pain points. Every new client, transaction, additional employee adds to the amount of financial data that you have to then collect and analyze and translate into business decisions. In many cases, these tasks are distributed across your organization into different business units, and it involves the sending and receiving of multiple spreadsheets. In Prophix, what you're able to do is you can use a workflow for any procedure that involves the collecting, reviewing, and approving of financial or detailed planning data. A workflow could be something as simple as maybe distributing a monthly financial report, or it could be something as complex as the finance department gathering the budget estimates from all departments or divisions for the coming year, and running the submission and approval cycle until the required result is achieved. So again, let's jump back into Prophix here and take you through a tour through our workflow.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. So yeah, coming back to Prophix here, and really to kind of focus again on the automation portion of this. One thing that Scott mentioned that I want to kind of zero in on is the amount of administrative work that goes into conducting a budget, a quarterly forecast, essentially any process that's going to be repeated like that typically requires a lot of manual intervention. Beyond even kind of linking templates or linking spreadsheets together, it's actually chasing down people, getting them to submit, getting them the data they need to actually come up with them. And that's really where we see workflow, like Scott said, coming into 99% of our clients' scope. If I can show really quickly what we like to do with customers, we actually try and come out with a few project-based deliverables through workflow. So what we'll actually do is say, take us through the steps that gets you to your annual budget, or through a quarterly forecast, or through a monthly reporting package that goes out to your executives or your board of directors. Once we get things into a consolidated order, going through the proper approvals, running any allocations or scenarios that need to be created, getting through to approval and distribution of the different data points. Essentially, what we're able to then do is use a lot of the functionality that exists in Prophix to make that workflow actionable. So rather than just having a kind of procedure or set of steps that it takes to go through, we can now actually get the system to do all that administrative work and run through that process for us. An example of what I mean by that can be actually tagging templates to tasks. So not only am I able to say it's going to go to this specific person, I want a specific template that I've created centrally in finance. I want certain activities to be completed before this person gets that data, whether it's funds being allocated to different places so that they know what their operating budget needs to be in, or whether it's just something as simple as we want to do our capital expenditures plan before we're going to do our OPEX plan. Where the real power then comes is that we can actually send out automated emails from within Prophix to the different users in the system. They'll get a direct link in the email so that they can come directly into Prophix, or they can prompt it from Prophix, just like I was doing before, from within my tasks. The end user interface, like I showed before, is really just a spreadsheet. There's some kind of added bells and whistles, and we're able to apply a lot more logic and security into those spreadsheets. But the end result from the financial leadership standpoint, so our budget managers, our FP&A managers, is that once they have this logicked out, they have all the templates created and users assigned. When it comes to next year, next quarter, or next month, all I need to do is come in and roll forward this entire workflow and set it off again. Then we're off to the races again, coming through all the appropriate approval steps to have the exact same result as last year. So a lot of power within workflow to be able to take, again, pretty much anything that's a repeatable process and really put it into practice and not have to necessarily manually administrate it on an ongoing basis.
Jamie, there was one thing, I was actually speaking with an organization who had this issue last week, but how do you ensure that when you're sending out reports to maybe departments or let's say it's plant managers, that they only see the data that they're supposed to see? So kind of our automated report distribution. Can we touch on that? Yeah,
really good point. So I'll actually just jump quickly back into the OPEX planning template to first show in practice what we're going to discuss. Everything in Prophix, security-wise, can be applied on pretty much any field and any user in the system. What I mean by this is somebody in central finance or in IT, wherever it might have been, created this OPEX budgeting data entry template. They then sent it out to however many different users across the organization. I myself, as my user, log in, and the only departments I have access to are in marketing. Another user might open the exact same template and only have access to IT or to finance or to sales OPEX. All of this is centrally managed in the front end of Prophix in an easy to use interface, because this really is critical. When we're talking about sensitive data like payroll, as a very good example, we want to be able to get down to the level of granularity that says, what are users able to write into? What are they able to read? I have access to all of my accounts, all the other fields that I have in my model here, whether it's department, entity, certain time periods, certain plan versions, whether it's an ongoing forecast that they might not have access to. I'm really able to go down to a really deep level of granularity here and say what people can and can't see. The huge beauty of this then, going back into this template, is that I don't need to now have 20 or 30 different Excel tabs or Excel spreadsheets that I'm distributing out. I can create and maintain one OPEX budgeting template, one CapEx template, one payroll costing template, one sales forecast template, and I can roll it out to all the relevant business units and not have to worry about them seeing different things or seeing information they shouldn't. And of course, Prophix automatically aggregates all the data then back up to the top.
Beautiful.
Again, I think the last point that you might have just mentioned there, Scott, as well, was then distributing this data out of Prophix. So just to show really quickly, we have this concept of reporting binders whereby we can put in different finished reports at the end of a workflow. and have these set off as a process on a schedule or at the end of a workflow, like I was saying. And the result can be a PDF, it can be an Excel spreadsheet, really a lot of flexibility here. You're even able to add in different graphics, you're able to add in corporate or executive summaries, and then you'll get all different types of reports here in Prophix, again, that are going to be filtered by that security that we talked about before. With that, again, I'll take a 10-second or 30-second break, see if there's any questions coming in.
Not at this time, Jamie.
Great. Okay, jump on to the next topic then.
Yeah, so next we want to talk about our dashboards. Dashboards really are only as good as the data that's underpinning them. If you're constantly spending time with data validity, a system like ours, like Prophix, can really ensure data integrity, and that all that time that you're now spending on validating data can now be spent actually on analysis and driving an impact to that bottom line. Perhaps now some of the things that we see, maybe you plug numbers into self-made charts, maybe Excel graphing tools to kind of create those visual representations. But with Prophix, what we're able to do is really create these powerful insights with detailed interactive charts and graphs. And then all with a single click, you're able to get to that next layer of data that's underpinning them. And that data is linked directly to your transactional system. So your Dynamics Nav or your BC. You also don't have to input any of these numbers yourself. Prophix does all of that tedious work for you in building that. Another big pain point in this vein is that not all financial data is easily accessible. So this could be, your GL data, or this could be data from other disparate data sources. The solution for most is just manual entry and having many different input templates. This, of course, can be time consuming and error prone, but in Prophix, you can easily integrate. You can pull in both structured and unstructured data, so that operational and financial data that finance and other business units need. So I know you've seen the dashboard already, but I thought we'd spend a little bit of time going into it in greater detail.
Yeah, great. And like Scott said, one of the really big value adds of our dashboard is that everything here is not surface level. It's not reading off of static data. Like you said, when data is imported, whether it's unstructured and it's just coming through a flat file or a spreadsheet, or it's being directly linked back to a general ledger, a CRM, whatever other type of system it is. All this data is essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's live. We know that this is as recent as the last data refresh that's been scheduled or run by a Prophix user. The beauty of this is that when I'm interacting with the data, drilling up and drilling down, like I've just gone and done, there we go, just got and done here in Prophix, is that, again, I can kind of go back into these details. I can do live queries against the data points that I'm seeing, and I'm going to have full access to all the transactions that are sitting underneath the system. Right, like we talked about at the beginning, being able to kind of point to any data point in Prophix and say, show me the transactions, do a live query against all these different fields and pull up what's relevant here. Beyond that, the dashboards, like everything else in Prophix, I was saying, are also held by security. So again, similar to our templates, what's fantastic here is I don't need to maintain 20 different dashboards for 20 different people. I can send out a dashboard to my US materials manager, and they might just receive a chart that looks like this, breaking down the different regions of the United States for them. The final point I'll just hit on really quick here as well, while we're in the dashboard, is just how easy and kind of self-service these are. So if I go in and I take our little rocket ship button here, what this does is strips away any formatting or kind of graphing. and just takes us back to the bare bones data that I'm looking at. If I want to repurpose this report, I have full access to do so without doing any sort of report writing or any languages or anything like that. All I need to do is just know to drag and drop the field that I want to see more details on over here. From there, I can expand this out, and now I've basically taken what I was looking at, sales variance report before. I now have sales by my different channels. If I'm going to now say, actually, this is the report that I'd really like to see, all I need to do to get this into a dashboard is hit save. I'll save this as data view 1. Go into our dashboard studio. Enter in here that I want to populate a chart. And now I can pop in data view 1. From there, it's just formatting this to make sure that it makes sense. I can add in things like a legend and titles. I can change the different color schemes that I have here. Essentially, once I come up with how I want this to be viewed, I think I like this arrangement. I can hit OK, hit save, and I now have this as a dashboard that's accessible to me at any time. The same way, I can open up an existing dashboard and I can populate anything else I want in here. So if I'm using this dashboard that's back over here on my home page, I can go and make changes to that. Really, again, the goal here is that rather than having users have to go into the system and dig up data points over and over, we're trying to automate as much of the KPIs and the metrics that we want to track day to day in Prophix accessible as soon as users log in. With that, I think I'll pass back to Scott for kind of the last section or the last example that we're going to pull up today.
Yeah, this one's pretty fun. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time here speaking about some of the innovative ways that we're leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning in our solution. So the idea here, just to kind of get out in the open, is not for AI to replace anyone's role, but really to enhance and allow the Office of Finance and other business units within the organization to work smarter, just by automating those repetitive tasks, serving up insights to you more naturally via voice or text, or detecting anomalies and being able to quickly surface risk, so giving greater confidence. I wanted to start out with a little bit on our anomaly detection and what we're delivering through machine learning. And really here, it's all about looking at what does your internal audit process currently look like. In most organizations, from what we see and who we're speaking to, it's a spot check. It rarely yields detection of anomalies and that are impacting their business, but billions of dollars are lost through errors, anomalies, and fraudulent activities each year by businesses of really all shapes and sizes. And the reason why is pretty understandable. The amount of effort to review every transaction is enormous, and not really the best use of time for a resource that would need to have a strong understanding of the business and audit itself. And this is where enter anomaly detection by Prophix. It's an integrated machine learning tool that we have that's brought to us from a third-party partner of ours that runs through every transaction in the general ledger. It classifies them by risk, outlier level, and reports them back to you for further investigation in Prophix. Since we already have that data at our fingertips when we're implementing Prophix's core data integration, this process becomes a really easy addition to the automation of tasks that we can already supply. And it allows for true peace of mind for finance teams that deal with really large number of transactions. So some questions that you might want to think about asking yourself and asking of your organization. It's, how are you auditing and analyzing your controls? How long does it take you to close your books? And what would the impact be if that could be significantly reduced, or some of the things to think about there. Task Assistant, this is who we call Prophix's Penny, kind of similar to Amazon's Alexa or Apple's Siri. you can simply ask Task Assistant in Prophix things like, what's on your plate. You can have it schedule an automated process, distribute a report to the team. It really helps you stay focused on the business, not performing these same repetitive tasks time and time again. And then Chart Insights. Chart Insights, what we're able to do there is instantly write the narrative and explain the important details contained within things like your dashboards by voice or text. So you can stop spending hours, digging through spreadsheets or interpreting dashboards, get the answers that you need really quickly and easily. And it's really more accessible for those with non-financial backgrounds. So you're taking what finance is able to build from data views and visual analytics, which Jamie was going into, and anyone from any business unit within the organization can feel empowered to come into the system and get an idea of things like trends and if we're on plan, and get an idea of that underlying data. So maybe what we'll do is pop back in and show you a few of these areas.
Yeah, great. The anomaly detection, I'm afraid to say I don't actually have available to show today. And truth be told, it takes probably a good half an hour to show on its own as it is. But two of the things that Scott just talked about there, in particular the Chart Insights, we already have clients out there using, they've already been built into the software and are available as packages, like Scott said, really to make Prophix more accessible for non-finance users. The thing that I like to say, and I said a bit earlier about the dashboards, is that we really don't want people to have to take any sort of course or training to learn how to navigate in Prophix. As much as we can, we want to avoid people actually having to go into the menu here and learning where to navigate for different things. People like administrators are always going to need to, but for people who are coming into the system really only maybe once a month or a couple times a month, trying to get them to learn that obviously can be problematic. So where kind of Chart Insights comes in on that is that if I do pull up a chart like this, I don't need to understand anything in depth about the way Prophix models data or way it imports data. I can just simply ask Prophix to explain out to me what I'm looking at when I see my revenue variance chart. I'll even get trends. I'll get a good idea of what range I'm looking at. And actually some quick kind of analytics here in terms of where things have increased or decreased over time or across different versions. Again, just in terms of really making data actionable for any user in the system, this has been hugely effective. I'll also say this is one of the quickest additions that we've been able to make, as every chart in Prophix automatically generates this now because of this integration with this AI component that does this. So really cool bit of software, really cool integration that we have there. And you can see that, yes, this also will read out this actual manuscript for me here as well. The second piece I will just show quickly up here, and I will put in the disclaimer that we are continually adding new commands here. Much like Siri or Google Chrome when it first came out, it's limited and it's in its infancy with Prophix, but there's currently, I think, about 11 or 12 commands that you're able to run different things within Prophix that, again, you can just supply to end users, and they now know that they don't need to learn how to navigate through or find anything. They can simply click in here. And for one of Scott's example there, if I want to pull up what tasks I personally am responsible for, I can ask Prophix, what's on my plate? And Prophix will think for a minute, and then it'll actually bring me to another dashboard here that's going to show what tasks I'm tagged in the various workflows. So again, like Scott said, pretty cool, but the goal with this is to actually continue to add, and like you said, really make navigation and learning the new software essentially a non-issue, that people are able to come in and interact with Prophix in almost a dialogue, that they can ask questions and they can get a response. So hopefully that's what people see today, and see that this definitely makes it more accessible, and you have to worry a little bit less about user adoption when you have tools like this built into the software.
Great. So just to put a bow on things here, I thought this would be a good graphic to pull up, and really just going through everything that we covered today. Of course, we touched on personnel planning. We've touched on dashboards and our ad hoc reporting functionality, our workflow and collaboration features, and then we even went into just that last bit there on our virtual financial analyst capabilities. We may have hit on your business needs. You may see other areas here that maybe are more pertinent to your business and your current setup. I just did want to note here, it's just a good slide to kind of do so, that we don't module off any of our core CPM functionality. So once you have Prophix, you have Prophix. You're clear to implement exactly what you need to start, and then you can tackle further phases either on your own with support directly from us, or potentially a partner of ours like Innovia as well helping you out. So I think we'll probably leave things there. I think we'll end up giving people some time back today, but maybe we can just spend a little bit of time here and see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Scott and Jamie. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. Let me pull those up. Okay, the first question that came through was, can temporary employees be planned for? Can they have different compensation rules applied?
Yeah, that's a good question, very fair. So I'll quickly pull up just our example from before, and apologies, I actually didn't point this out, but as we pull up our personnel planning template, or really any template in Prophix that's going to have time going across, you'll see here we can actually dictate start and end periods. So for that specific example of a temporary employee or an hourly employee, we can either program that into an attribute over here and have temporary employee as one of the fields, or we can very simply just put in that they're going to start at a certain time frame and at another. Thanks, Angie.
Okay, thank you. And we are currently using Excel to budget and forecast. Can any of the Excel business logic that has already been created be transferred over, or are you starting from scratch?
Yeah, another really good question. So that's actually usually the basis for what we start our build on, is we will review the templates and the current processes and try and build those into the models in Prophix. So 100%, there's no starting from scratch. Basically, as long as you have some sort of budgeting process, we're usually able to then translate that in directly into Prophix and try and automate as much of what was manual as possible there.
Okay, thank you. And are you able to audit or track changes to data inputs?
Oh, yeah, another really good question. So again, I'll just quickly dive into a template here and just kind of show something that, yeah, I probably should have showed a bit earlier, but okay, so if I write into any cell here in Prophix, and then I right click and I have this option called data history, I can see not only what the number was before, or the value was before, but I can also see what user did it, at what point, and actually the logic of how it got there. So you can see here I have, sometimes it's being done through a workflow template like I just did it. Other times people are running spreads, so they're allocating down. In this case, it looks like this amount was written into 2020 and it was spread out into the 12 months. Yeah, there's essentially full auditability here for any data creation or any budgeting that's done in Prophix.
Mm-hmm. When we pull this up, it always gets a big smile from the controller, who's spends a lot of time pulling their hair out, figuring where did this number come from, or who changed what.
All right, great. I think those are all the questions that we have for you guys today. If anybody has any further questions that you want Jamie or Scott to address, please feel free to type those into the questions box and they will get them answered for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angie.
Thank you. And thank you guys for presenting today, and everyone that is watching on demand, or if you're on today joining us, we thank you. And we do have a few more webinars coming soon. Tomorrow, we have Gino Pack from Innovia Consulting. He's going to be presenting on using apps to make your Microsoft Teams channels more collaborative. And then on Thursday, we have Easy Stock presenting on Beyond the Gut Feeling, a better approach to inventory management. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's innovia.com/events. And Innovia does have a podcast that is going on right now. If you haven't heard of it already, it's called the Innovia Conversation. And we just want to encourage you to listen to our selection that Steve and Jeff have provided to us over the last year. They do about 2 episodes per month, and you can find out about all the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. So check out the podcast selection and subscribe so you will be notified when those new episodes air. And we will be having our annual customer conference coming up on May 20th and 21st here in South Bend, Indiana at Notre Dame. Contact your rep, or you can visit our conference page where we have all the details for our conference. That website is innovia.com/conferences. This is a great event for our customers to attend, and we would love to have you. So register now so you don't miss out on this great event. And you can also see more of Jamie and Scott at our conference. Prophix will be there presenting, so you can actually meet them in person. All right, well, again, thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.